different currency designs.
Yep.
So you have, overall, you need this massive community building like you've just described. But if your community is effectively your business or your network, it's one pattern. And if your community benefits from your currency, but is a centralizing service or product that they're receiving, it's a different pattern.
So here's an interesting twist I'm going to throw at you. I think you'll appreciate this. If we look at the history of how we valued companies, in the past, we only had one metric, which was revenue.
Yep.
Making money or they're not making money.
Yep.
And then comes along Twitter and Facebook, and they said, well, we don't make any money. And everyone said, well, then why do we value you? And they said, because we have 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 100 million, 500 million users on our platform. And everyone said, so you could run a little advertising on there and you could monetize that. Yeah. And I think that was a really, really interesting paradigm shift when we went from revenue to having a lot of users equals a lot of value, because WhatsApp got acquired for a lot of money. And lots of other platforms out there that, because they have tons and tons of users, they have value to everyone else because you have a reach. What's really interesting for me with blockchain is this new thing we talk about, and you and I are talking about it now, called community. And I have seen multiple cases where investors would say, I'm not investing in this project because the community is not big enough. And you'd say, well, hang on, what? Because we're not talking about revenue, and we're not talking about users, because the users can't be there yet because the product is still being built. So now they're measuring companies on an entirely different metric, which hasn't even reached the public consciousness yet. And here we are calling it out right here, which is the ability to measure companies by the community size, which would be by looking at the engagement and the number of users and the types of comments that are positive or negative sentiment on your Twitters, on your Telegrams, on your LinkedIn, on your Facebook groups. And that is an entirely different way to measure the value of a company or by the community itself, and how many people are backing and involved and supporting and commenting and discussing on that project on a regular basis, which will then lead to users and lead to revenue. But we've gone one stream further down in terms of really getting the reach to the individuals, and we're valuing companies today based on that community reach. What do you think about that?
To me, it ties perfectly into the third question.
Right, the third question, we are going to have to make this a two-parter because
we are.
Yeah, cool. Let's go for it. What's number 3?
The third question is, does your business reward your users for efficient and value-added work? And then
say it one more time. Does your business reward the users for
efficient and value-added work?
Efficient and value. Okay.
Yeah. And so let me just.
That's really interesting, because how do we measure reward? Because we can also reward people for participation who aren't employees, for example.
Absolutely. So there's a few different ways, as you just described, of looking at this, but connecting that to the inquiry you were following before.
Yeah.
Which was, how do you value? What are the new ways we're using to value organizations? And this way of community is. We're seeing the value, but we don't know quite how to measure it. If you combine those 2 points with what I was saying earlier, which is there's actually a couple of different ways of looking at community, and the world hasn't yet made that distinction. Because blockchain, we know, but we haven't experienced it yet, allows the network to be the business. And Netflix will be a perfect example.
Yeah,
so it will be Netflix, or it will be the evolution of the Netflix, but eventually there will be Netflix users will be also Netflix hosts. I will be running the Netflix application. I will be storing content on the edge. They're already using distributed systems, distributed databases, so that they're not having all of the content centrally held. Right? But what they haven't moved into is the evolution of trust. So at the moment, the application, the running of the application and the storage of the data is being held with data centers. Eventually, whether it's Netflix or someone else, it'll make sense that that data is held on the edge at the point of consumption or the point of creation. And that, in those businesses, as they evolve, there'll be decentralized organizations, decentralized systems using distributed architecture, expanding what we have as a trusted actor in our current world as a company, that you will be expanding your level of trust to incorporate your community. then community metrics are your business.
Yeah, so
And
interestingly enough, when you talk about distributed content and you talk about it being at source or destination, I think there's another piece in the middle there, which
yeah,
is many people talk about what's the point of a master-node. And it's true, most people don't have any purpose.
yep,
But what if we started using the master-nodes that or the proof of stake nodes that are distributed around a project, and that project could then use those nodes for distributing a content in a decentralized way. So I could put my content out. It could be, pushed to one or several nodes, much the way that Holochain doesn't distribute everything everywhere. You distribute it through an agent-based mechanism. You could follow the Holochain model of an agent-based structure, but using nodes to distribute content, and it would be done in an anonymous way. So I'm at source creating the content, but I publish it, but I'm not publishing it from my home PC because I don't have the bandwidth to support that. But if I use a distribution of nodes, I could get that content all over the place. And then whether I'm a YouTube or a Netflix pulling the content in for distribution, again, that could be distributed as well or decentralized. And then you're talking about something that's a really interesting mesh of content to distribution. I think that's probably where we're heading when we start to see the nodes are actually being used for more than just staking coins and making money.
exactly. And yeah, Holochain would use a distributed hash table. So it would be like a collection in the DHT rather than a master node or something, but you can also do a master node.
Principles are the same though about a distributed or decentralized environment.
100%. And this is where, so this is exactly what this question is designed to ask. So in your design of your economy, have you thought about where value creation happens, and have you got an efficient design for value creation where valuable activity is being rewarded? So maybe if you don't need a master node, then you shouldn't design in master nodes and have them receive benefits for operating their master node because you don't need it. If you need a master node, they should be rewarded appropriately. And this question is designed to really tease out whether it's mining or staking. One of my biggest concerns with traditional blockchains that were designed many years ago is that they reward like competitive behavior that isn't efficient and value added for the network. So the fact that there's a whole bunch of miners that lose is a massive inefficiency. And when you take that, that's fine for a currency like Bitcoin. But when you try and take it up to the application level, you're pushing that cost onto the users, customers of the application, and that means there's going to be someone is going to come along with better technology without those costs and attract the user base. So your currency really needs to be designed for and this is where it cuts into protocol choice. You have to be designed for maximum efficiency, otherwise you're just not competitive. And so this question tells you exactly what you just described. If we need master nodes, we need master nodes. This is where they sit. This is how they need to be rewarded.
Yeah, but my point was I don't think people have even thought about the usage of what masternodes are for. I mean, there's tons of masternode projects out there, but people haven't actually thought about the use cases other than staking your own nodes for your own purpose. But actually, honestly, these companies are missing a trick. I mean, and anybody who's thinking about running a project that's decentralized, that wants to run decentralized services, get on the masternode bandwagon and understand that that node can be designed to do stuff. It could be a decentralized service that's being run where some of the computing power can be light, doesn't have to be heavy, but streaming files doesn't take a lot of compute power, just takes some bandwidth. But other things don't require much of anything other than a couple of pings of messages back and forth. But people aren't taking advantage of the fact that we've created a distributed or a decentralized network or mesh of computers and aren't even leveraging that yet. And I'm thinking, what are people missing here? Why is that not the case that that's actually being leveraged and used? And I think people were very quick to build stuff, not thinking forward about what it's actually going to be used for. I'm beginning to think that there's a lot more use cases out there that people just haven't considered. I'm beginning to hear some of it now, which is great. But oh my God, I think we have another 18 months of really interesting evolution now in this space. For sure. It's going to be really interesting to see what comes out next.
Spot on. And the masternodes are a nice simple example, isn't it? And they're two different projects. One has a masternode design that adds value to the network and is rewarded appropriately. Brilliant. One that doesn't and has masternodes for no real reason. They become a centralizing power on the network with no value add. That network is going to have a limited lifespan.
That's right. For sure. Okay, so moving to number 4. It's getting more
Yeah,
interesting.
the key as you get from number three for me is all about business risk
Yeah.
there and
Okay.
efficient architecture design. So number four can be, can you describe the value of your business through your currency design? Hmm? So
Okay.
is your currency related to the fundamentals of your business or not? Very, very, very simple. It could be an STO, to some extent, is in one way ultimately the only fundamental of your business because it could be related to the value or market value based on equity. Uh, Another way of looking at that is, have you designed a coin that is tied to any metrics or fundamentals of how you operate and run or not? And we can get really interesting. So again, I love like payment coins, like Binance coin are really interesting because in some ways they are really tied to the fundamentals because if it's a transaction fee business and you've fixed the supply,
Yeah.
then
Well,
it's
actually,
a
it's not even a fixed supply. They're actually burning the supply over time to create, you know, um, scarcity.
exactly. So that's a very effective design in today's market. The reason that's super effective is that the spending of the coin on the platform is not a high risk activity. So if I'm a user and I've purchased Binance coin for the purpose of making for saving on the transaction fees, if the coin doubles or halves, I'm generally okay because the average trade is average trade I think is 0.01 BTC. We're not getting many people trading more than 20 BTC in any transaction. Maybe it's a tiny handful. So the time your transaction fee becomes material as a trader, where you really would care about the price fluctuation of the Binance coin,
Yeah.
we've got a different mechanism to be able to handle that. So you've
Sure.
taken that risk out. So where this fixed supply model works absolutely brilliantly is where the user is pretty price insensitive to price fluctuations or to volatility. And that
Right.
is a brilliant, brilliant design, but it is completely contextual. And it is one way of describing. So it does describe the value because it's a transaction-led business and the coin is related to transactions.
That's right. Oh, amongst other things, it's being used for a lot of other things now too.
Exactly. Well, that's when you get the network effects and using things for different purposes. And
Now they're
that
using it as a fundraising token, so you have to buy the token to then buy the IEO-based token. They're also using the token to, which I think is really brilliant. I mean, they have this thing called sweeping up the dust. So if you've got
yep.
a whole bunch of coins that have got a little bit of dust and they're 0.01 or they're worth a penny or whatever, you can't trade them. But what Binance will do is sweep them all out of your wallet and give you Binance coins in exchange for it. And if they do that to 10,000 people, they've now got all those coins tradable again in their wallet, and their treasury departments, and they're laughing going, great, well, we didn't have anything, and now we've got 10 BTC and sweeping up all the dust from the people who didn't want all these other coins and swapping it to Bitcoin. And they've just monetized their business in an entirely different way. And at the same time, hang on one second. Okay, sorry, we're back. I had a small interruption from my Dalmatian in heat. So I apologize, but my male Labrador decided he wanted to, well, you get the point. Sorry. So I had to pause this for a second there. But yeah, so what I think is really interesting about what Binance is doing is the fact that they're creating other mechanisms in which they can use their own coin. They'll reward you with some coins for taking away a little bit of dust, but in the background, they get everyone's dust. And if you just do a multiplier effect of how many people they sweep in, and then they can take, little bits of Dash and more Dash and more Dash, and all of a sudden they have a whole Dash coin. They go, okay, let's swap that now to a Bitcoin. And that's a great way to monetize a business using that. And then that coin that they just gave you, which is a BNB coin, can be used for trading. So your trading fees are now free. So you use your dust to create free trading, and actually they don't care because every time you trade, you're creating more dust when you buy in and out again, and then they sweep up your dust again, and then they give you some more free trading coins because they're getting more out of the dust than they are out of their actual trading. They don't even care. I think they're almost ready to give away trading for free by doing this. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Exactly. So it's an example of once you get network effects